Not gonna lie, there are some pretty terrifying creatures that currently roam the earth, such as the anaconda, the Goliath tigerfish, and the goblin shark. Seriously, what is up with that last one? It looks like what would happen if you cross a human with a shark. But we aren't going to be focusing on that creature today, or any other animals that are currently alive. Instead, we are going to be looking at some terrifying animals that thankfully went extinct. Or else, people would be scared to leave their house. I mean, we are currently scared to leave our house, but this would just add more fear. Hey everyone, what's up and welcome back to Life's Biggest Questions. The voice you are currently listening to belongs to me, Lindsay Ivan, your voice of reason for today's video, which is Top 10 Scary Animals We Are Glad Went Extinct. But before I begin, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to Life's Biggest Questions. With that being said, let's dive on into the video. Now, I wouldn't want to wish any animal extinct. But in this case, I am pretty happy that these animals are no longer around. And you'll understand why shortly. Scientists better not start messing with their DNA and try to resurrect them. Starting off this countdown, we have the Platypelodon. This animal makes me wonder if scientists accurately reconstructed this one. Because just look at him. Come on, there's no way that this was a real animal. It looks so creepy and weird. So, the Platypelodon was a large mammal closely related to the elephant. It was said to roam the swamps, lakes, and rivers of Africa and Eurasia about 10 million years ago. This mammal had a long trunk and tusks like elephants, but also had a shovel for a mouth. So, apparently, the Platypelodon would scoop water and food through its shovel mouth. Like, it kind of reminds me of a stretched out hippo. Either way, I prefer the way our modern day elephants currently look. Coming in at number 9, we have the Gorgonops. Compared to the other creatures I'm about to mention, this one is probably one of the less scarier ones. So the Gorgonops were a species about 6 to 10 feet in length. Their skulls were anywhere from 20 to 35 centimeters long. This animal lived 260 million years ago, way before dinosaurs roamed the earth. And they were thought to be a very vicious predator. They had two very large canine teeth that extended down past their lower jaw. Their teeth were one of the reasons why this beast was near the top of the food chain. Honestly, it's a pretty weird animal. The images make it look like a cross between a hippo, dinosaur, and a saber-toothed tiger. Coming in at number 8, we have the LIOPLEURODON. The LIOPLEURODONs were carnivorous beasts that weighed more than 3,500 pounds, and it was longer than 30 feet. In fact, their massive skull took up 1/4 of their body. Of course, with such a big head, they had massive jaws, and numerous rows of razor-sharp teeth. Their bites were extremely powerful, and their teeth were about 20 centimeters in height. Now, there is some debate on the size of this creature. Some say it can be up to 30 feet, while others claim it was anywhere from 6.39 to 7.5 meters long. But either way, they were pretty massive and creepy looking. In our 7th spot, we have the ARTHROPLEURA. Now, this next creature isn't an animal per se, but it certainly is bigger than some. It is considered an insect, but it is just so terrifying that I had to include it on this list. So the ARTHROPLEURA was an 8.5 foot long millipede. Yep, normal sized millipedes have up to 200 legs. I don't even want to know how many legs this giant one had. Now, modern millipedes are herbivores, but this one may have been carnivorous. In fact, these millipedes are so big that they had no known predators, and it was considered the largest land-dwelling invertebrate in history. Now, it's said that these insects went extinct probably because of climate change. Now, I'm not one for climate change, but in this case, I'm happy this monster is gone. On our way down the list at number 6, we have the Archaeotherium. The Archaeotherium, whose name translates to ancient beast, was a tall and bulky, aggressive creature. In fact, it was often referred to as the hell pigs, or pigs from hell. While they aren't actually related to pigs, it's due to their hog-like appearance that they got this name. In fact, it's thought that this animal is more closely related to hippos and whales. The Archaeotherium had huge jaws, strong neck muscles, and oversized skulls. Their jaws could open very wide, which suggests they could easily clamp down on their prey. In fact, they would hunt and kill prehistoric rhinos. Their large teeth towards the front of their mouth could be used to easily crush their prey's skull, while their forward canine teeth would be used to tear off and pick apart their food. In our 5th spot, we have the Dinophelus, whose name translates to terrible cat. In fact, it's said to be the most famous prehistoric big cat. This animal was thought to be anywhere from the size of a leopard to a lion. It had huge fangs and strong front legs that it would use to pin down its prey before ripping them open. Now, this cat was a little more chunky, so it wasn't fast, but it could easily trap its prey through its stealth and excellent night vision abilities. Now, here's what makes this animal terrifying. It would mainly hunt and eat humans. Well, the early form of humans. Apparently, our ancestors were easy targets. Now, what the Dinophelus would do is pounce on them and then bite into their skulls and literally crush them with their teeth. So yeah, another animal that we can keep extinct, please. Moving on, number 4, we have the giant sea scorpion. The Eurypterida, sometimes pronounced as Eurypterida, was basically a giant sea scorpion. It was around 8 feet long and had sharp pincher claws. These spiked claws were said to be around 18 inches. The Eurypterida was said to be one of the fiercest creatures on Earth. In fact, they didn't have any predators. Now, their diet mainly consisted of large fish, but they also had a tendency to eat each other. Yep, that's right, they were cannibals. But just imagine dipping your toes into the ocean, then being dragged under by one of these. Yeah, that's no from me. Moving on at number 3, we have the MEGALODON. Of course, I'm sure a bunch of you guessed that this one was going to be on the list. If you've seen the movie The Meg, you'd see just how big and terrifying these sharks are, even if it may have been an exaggeration. Well, the Meg was a 59-foot long shark that had massive 7-foot wide jaws. Its size is about triple the size of today's great white sharks. In their jaws were 5 rows of sharp teeth. In fact, they had around 276 teeth. So yeah, these dudes could slice you up no problem. This shark's bite was strong enough to crush a car. In fact, their teeth were so strong that they would resist cracking even if they were to chomp down on bone. There is even evidence that suggests that they would often target and eat large whales. Can you imagine if Megs were still around? You could be out swimming peacefully and next thing you know, you're swallowed whole by this beast. In our 2nd spot, we have the TITANOBOA. If you're not a fan of snakes like me, then maybe skip this next one, because this snake was massive. The TITANOBOA was 50 feet long and weighed around 2,500 pounds. In fact, they were referred to as one of the biggest and baddest predators on Earth. These snakes plagued the Earth around 60 million years ago, just after dinosaurs went extinct. They were also known as crushing machines because they would wrap around their prey and crush them with ease. All reconstructed photos of the snake are terrifying. I would never want to encounter this beast. And in our number 1 spot, we have the Deinosuchus, aka the mega crocodile. The name Deinosuchus literally means terrible crocodile, and I mean, that name is pretty fitting, although it's said to be more closely related to alligators than crocodile. Either way, this animal was pretty terrible and terrifying. Deinosuchus could grow to be around 36 feet long, and they weighed around 7 tons. This animal threatened the Earth around 72 to 83 million years ago. Now, here's something you won't believe. It is said that Deinosuchus would often battle dinosaurs. That's right, and they would win. Fossils of T-Rexes have revealed teeth marks from these animals. So yeah, this animal literally took on the king of dinosaurs. This means that their jaw had enough power to take down a huge dinosaur, like a T-Rex.
Number 10, the DUNKLEOSTEUS. Now it may sound silly because it has the word dunk in it, but this thing did not shoot threes. It actually shot its head out at you in 50 milliseconds. Quite fast. The DUNKLEOSTEUS was a 30-foot-4 long armored fish that originated from the Devonian era. Its fossil was first discovered in 1867 by Dr. David Dunkel. Dunkel, now you're getting it. So 400 million years ago, this thing was the king during the ages of fish. It swam confidently in subtropical waters, weighing around 1 ton, and it was kind of a bully, obviously. I mean, look at this thing. It's not his fault, he was born that way. Its massive skull was well equipped with 2 fangs. Each of those fangs had like 2 sharp points, so it almost had 4 fangs. 4 fangs, 2 teeth, a lot of trouble. Those teeth would rub against each other as it grew, so as if the massive bonehead wasn't intimidating enough, he's constantly sharpening his teeth, waiting for you. Yikes. If you're looking to gaze into the face of fear, head to the Cleveland Museum of Natural History. They name it Dunk. Go see Dunk. Go say what's up to Dunk. Number 9, MEGANEUROPSIS. Moving over to the insect side of history, ew, these guys had a wingspan of 30 inches. Insects 2.5 feet wide flying towards your face. No thank you. MEGANEUROPSIS lived 250 million years ago. They greatly resemble dragonflies, but they weren't. They flew around before pterosaurs, birds, or bats ever did. The extinct griffin fly was discovered in 1939 in Kansas by a man named Frank Morton Carpenter. He was the insect curator at the Museum of Comparative Zoology at Harvard University. They had teeth, and scientists believe that they were as fast as dragonflies today. Teeth and speed plus wingspan equals I'm dead. We're all dead. Fossil remains have also showed us that these guys would spend some time around water. Imagine being in a kayak and this thing comes and just takes a bite out of your neck. No, I don't want to imagine that. I'm glad these things are gone. Save most of the animals, but also don't save all of them, you know? And before we continue on with this scary list, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, give us a thumbs up for animals that are extinct. What a weird thing to ask, but you know what I'm talking about. Those likes do add up and they give us a lot of support here at the studio to then fire stuff out back at you. It's a circle of life. Hit that thumbs up, you're amazing. Thanks, back to the list. Number 8, Megalodon. Louis Agassiz discovered the Megalodon shark for the first time way back in 1843. He was a Swiss-born American naturalist and geologist. Now he discovered some amazing details about glacier activity and extinct fish. He's brilliant, but one of those extinct fish just happened to be the tooth shark, aka Megalodon. Or as Jason Statham says, Megalodon. A little bit more menacing. It lived everywhere in the world but Antarctica, really. It favored warm oceans, but similarly to a great white, it generates heat when it moves, so it can survive most places and therefore kill you in most places. The largest recorded megalodon came in at 59 feet, about the same length as a bowling alley. If this thing were still alive today, there's no chance our boy Jay Stath could take it. Its 7-foot wide jaws had plenty of trunk space for a swimmer, and its 5 rows of razor-sharp teeth ensured it didn't get out. Number 7, ARCTODUS smilus. Lions and tigers and ARCTODUS smilus, oh my. Also known as the short-faced bear. This thing went extinct only a mere 11,000 years ago. It was the fastest running bear that ever existed, so already we have trouble. Its legs were much longer than today's bears. If this thing stood up on its hind legs, it would be about 13 feet tall. That's like 2 of me and a bit. It's nuts. Today's bears also have different shaped toes. Today they have pigeon toes, but back then these guys had straight forward-facing feet, so they were athletes. These guys were doing 200-meter hurdles. Biologists conclude that the short-faced bear only ate meat, so it was basically Joe Rogan. And given the fact that it was 11,000 years ago, I feel very badly for humans that found it. Well, with its powerful nose, realistically it would be tracking them, so it found them. It needed about 35 pounds of meat a day to survive, so one Christina Ricci ought to do it. That's a lot of porridge for one bear. Number 6, EURYPTERIDA. We look now to the largest scorpion to ever exist. Part of the arthropod family, insects, spiders, and crabs, all that gross stuff, it was nicknamed the sea scorpion, and it swam the waters about 450 million years ago. They would be about 8 feet long with their claws swinging another 3 feet out to snip at you. So an 11-foot sea scorpion is what we're talking about here. Nice. The first sea scorpion was discovered in 1899 in Melbourne, Australia. You know, the place with all the giant scary stuff? Over there. Number 5. THYLACOSMILUS. I saw an opossum a couple weeks back, like outside in real life. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I had no idea what the f I was looking at for numerous minutes. Marsupials are fascinating but odd creatures to see with your own 2 eyes. But back 5 million years ago, they were much more of a threat and a little bit scarier looking. THYLACOSMILUS looks a lot like a saber tooth, but it was part of a group called Sparassodonts, a cousin to our marsupials now. Its name translates to terrible pouched knife, which sounds excellent, and it used to live in what's now South America. Elmer Riggs discovered the remains in 1920, and only recently have we figured out that it wasn't a cat, although it might look quite similar. Its teeth are intimidating, but this beast didn't have incisors. Its lower jaws weren't fused together either. These teeth were triangular in shape like a claw rather than a flat blade-like tooth. Either way, I'm happy not having this thing take a bite near my neck. Let's keep it that way. Go away. Stay in history. Number 4. T-Rex. Of course, we have to mention a T-Rex on a list of creatures we're glad went extinct. Tiny arms, massive head, loud scream, we've seen Jurassic Park, come on. About 70 million years ago, this big fella would roam what is now North America, and on average it would be about 20 feet tall, 8 tons, stretching a haunting 40 feet long, and its jaws are the main bread and butter here. We laugh at this thing for not having long arms, as if it even matters. 50 to 60 razor-sharp serrated teeth, about 9 inches long, would help it digest 500 pounds of meat in one serving. Henry Farfield Osborn sounds like a Marvel villain. He's actually the president of the American Museum of Natural History, and he named the behemoth back in 1905. The name T-Rex comes from the Greek and Latin words meaning tyrant lizard king. If you thought the only lizard king was Godzilla, think again. Number 3. ELASMOSAURUS. First discovered in 1868, a military doctor in Kansas found this creature's fossil, passed it along to American paleontologist Edward Cope, who named it the plesiosaur. Its neck contained 71 vertebrae, and it was super long, which came in handy during those deep dinner dives. And when I say long, the ELASMOSAURUS was about 50 feet in length, so it didn't need to get that close to the surface of the water to get some air. There's people out there that actually believe that the Loch Ness Monster is just one of these things still lurking about. Its teeth were sharp enough to eat anything that it could fit into its mouth, and just 2 years ago scientists have unearthed the largest known elasmosaur. This thing has been sitting there since the Cretaceous period waiting for us, and I sure hope we don't find any more because one water dragon is enough for me. Number 2. LIOPLEURODON. Translating to smooth-sided teeth, the LIOPLEURODON was anything but a smooth sailor. It was a massive marine reptile from the Mesozoic era discovered in the 19th century. It was excavated in France back in 1873, and all they had was 3 teeth, hence the smooth nickname. But when it was featured in 1999's Walking with Dinosaurs BBC series, it was shown as this massive 80-foot long pilosaur. But they were basing that size off of its skull, which we now know is much larger than the rest of its body. It's normal. Pliosaurs were the apex predators in Europe. 160 million years ago, most of it was covered in shallow water, and it used its 4 flipper feet to stalk its prey, and researchers believe that its snout was a key asset in hunting. They didn't have any gills, so they did need to come up for air every now and then, but imagine seeing that today. I see a turtle in the water and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna wait it out for a bit. Number 1. TITANOBOA. I'm not a snake guy, I'll start by saying that. Spiders, sure, whatever. Snakes? Get lost. I don't like the way they wrap their body around you and squeeze like anacondas. It's so scary. But 60 million years ago, the movie Anaconda would have been a lot shorter. The movie would have been like 6 minutes long. In 2004, its remains were discovered after an excavation of a coal mine in Colombia. It was found in rock dating back to 60 million years ago. And after studying several of its fossils, scientists believe the average size was 50 feet long and 3 feet wide. It was the largest known predator on the planet after dinosaurs went extinct, until 40 million years later when the megalodon popped up. That's a pretty large window to be ruling the earth. Next time you see a garter snake, imagine it's the size of your garage and then have a panic attack like I did scripting this list. Kicking off the list at number 10, THERIZINOSAURUS. There is or there isn't, because that name is misleading. No, they've been dead for 75 million years. They're for sure gone. THERIZINOSAURUS, fun name, also known as the reaping lizard. It was first discovered in 1948. It could grow up to 10 meters long and it weighed about 5 tons. Quite the unit, but the feature that stands out the most on this long neck, raptor looking dinosaur is its massive claws. The thing's got baseball mitts for hands. It's quite intimidating. This is where the Greek gods got the name from. Therizo means to reap or to cut off. This was the Freddy Krueger of dinosaurs. Now, although its choice of meal was always a salad, it didn't shred animals up unless it had to in self-defense, in which it was probably pretty easy. They would just be like, hee, and then it's gone. Or a bunch of plants, hee, there we go, we're eating. The first fossil was discovered in the late 1940s from a Soviet Mongolian fossil expedition, and they found the claws first, which must have been pretty intimidating because for 10 years they really had no idea what this creature was that these claws belonged to. In the early 50s, they found more bones and eventually the pieces of the puzzle fit together and they realized that it wasn't a turtle like they originally thought. I also love that concept art. That would have been a pretty cool turtle, but alas, it's just a larger, much more terrifying dinosaur. And before we continue on with this list, if you're loving all this dinosaur goodness, click that thumbs up. Let's give a thumbs up for the fact that none of these still exist. That's a good sign. Let's keep this going. Number 9, Helicoprion. Perhaps one of the weirdest sea creatures to exist about 250 million years ago, this looks like a shark, but scientists now know that it was actually related to chimeras, which is a fish that separated from the shark fam about 400 million years ago. This 25-foot long fish was first discovered by Andrei Zarpinski in Russia back in 1889. He got the name Helicoprion because it translates to spiral saw. This guy found teeth fossilized in a spiral formation, which is wild to find that. He must have been scratching his head for weeks. Paleontologists all agree today that this was not part of a fin. It wasn't a wacky spinal cord like somebody who I'm talking about later on in this list. Its teeth coiled up and it was attached to the lower jaw of the fish, and its snap was the same power roughly as a crocodile. So new teeth would form, and then in turn these spirals would get longer and coil in. Adult fish would have 4 rotations in their mouths, and I thought an ingrown toenail was uncomfortable. Oh my god, I couldn't even imagine. No thanks. Number 8. Dire wolves. If you're from South Westeros, this one might hit close to home. About 10,000 years ago, which is pretty close compared to all the other animals on this list, dire wolves were still a thing. Now if you've watched Game of Thrones, which you should have if you haven't, go watch it. Go watch the whole show after you're done this. Yeah, easy. You're probably nodding your head right now, or getting tissues, maybe both, I don't know. Dire wolves come in at around the same size as a gray wolf today, so it's not like a mega wolf with 3 heads or anything insane. There's no teeth coming out of its neck, but it did weigh a lot more. It was eating pretty good. Their jaws were much stronger, so crushing animal bones or humans weren't really a problem. They would actually hunt down and eat horses. Yeah, you know, like horses. After studying their teeth, that was their go-to snack. Currently, if you're in the market for seeing 400 dire wolf skulls, head to the Page Museum in Southern California. They found hundreds of thousands of these things in the La Bruyere tar pits. Dire wolves and saber-toothed cats would get stuck in these pits, and then depending on who stuck that day, the latter would then come along, eat them, and then unbeknownst to them, they were actually walking into their own similar fate. It's just people going in, eating, sinking, going in, eating, sinking. It's horrible. Number 7, ARTHROPLEURA. These creepy crawlies translates to jointed ribs, which sounds so gross off the bat. Okay. ARTHROPLEURA were these gigantic millipedes. How gross. They would grow up to 6 feet long. It was the largest known invertebrate to this day. Thankfully, there's nothing bigger than this, so you can throw up once and then you're good. It ruled all over the arthropods, so any other spider, insect, crustacean was nothing compared to this horror. They roamed the land during the Paleozoic period, and they would crawl around at much higher speeds than today's millipedes, which is alarming because those things literally will go around your house in like 1 minute. And they ate decomposing organic matter, so no, they wouldn't gobble you up if you went back in time, don't worry. The reason all these monster bugs got so large, by the way, was because 300 million years ago, oxygen made up 30% of the air, whereas now we're only sucking in 21%. We're getting hand-me-down bug air, which is awesome. So we luckily, though, don't have any monster bugs, just a dying hot planet that we have to deal with instead. Number 6, EPICYON. Much more than just a dog, these extinct canines were known as bone-crushing dogs. Much different than your, schnauzer. They would come in at around 5 feet long, greatly resembling a grizzly bear. Their massive head would come in handy during all these hunts, and it had the head size of a lion, and its jaw certainly played the part as well. Lions, tigers, and bears all rolled up into one furry 300-pound sack of holy. It was made to crush, literally. Its 4th premolar wasn't large, just like some hyenas. So just like bears, this thing too lived in what's now North America, and they went extinct about 6 million years ago, which is pretty recent considering other guys as well. Could you imagine camping and all of a sudden this thing comes in? Sorry, all of a sudden this thing runs in? No way, never, not a chance. Number 5, MEGAPIRANHA. We talked about Megalodon in part 1, but here we are with another mega. MEGAPIRANHA sounds like a Marvel Comics villain from the 70s, but in reality it was much worse. These things obviously were much bigger than today's piranhas. They came in at about 1 meter long and they ruled the water around Argentina, so 6 million years ago you wouldn't want to take a late night skinny dip or else you probably wouldn't come out of the water. Its bite force was 50 times its own weight, which is scary for any fish, but when they're 30 pounds on average back then, that's some quick maths, that's gonna hurt. Its bite can outchomp Megalodon, like, come on. Even today the word piranha makes people anxious because our modern day black piranha, sure it weighs 2 pounds, but its razor sharp teeth and bite force is still pretty intimidating. I'm sure MEGAPIRANHA will be the villain in some huge blockbuster with some actor. MEGAPIRANHA 3DDD Part 3 or something stupid. Number 4, LINHENYKUS. If you thought a T-Rex had tiny arms, wait until you see this dude. LINHENYKUS monodactylus roamed the lands of Mongolia 65 million years ago. I'm a fan of this little dinosaur. It's actually always giving other dinosaurs the middle finger, which is great. So it had a little arm and one finger claw type scenario. He had ice cream cones for hands, essentially. In terms of these other monsters on this list, it's pretty small. It came in at the size of a parrot. Now this little guy would lay eggs and carve through anything that snuck into their nest. It was still a carnivore, like it was a T-Rex, Velociraptor, and this little guy. They were all coming after you. Any shape or size, you're getting pecked apart or ripped apart. I would for sure have this guy as a pet. His little cone hands just tapping around. That'd be so cute. Until he, eats your neck. Number 3, Spinosaurus. Another Jurassic Park star, and rightfully so. The largest carnivorous dinosaur of all time, even bigger than a T-Rex. Can you imagine? Oh my god. 93 million years ago, they stopped terrorizing the lands of what is now Egypt and Morocco. If you didn't already guess, its name translates to spine lizard, and that spine was quite long. The spine reached about 7 feet tall, and the Spinosaurus itself would measure up to 60 feet long. And aside for its back, one of the most notable features is its 6-foot long head. Its mouth was similar to a crocodile's with straight, sharp teeth, not curved like the other ones, but like straight. So these teeth could stab right through any slippery fish, just a big skewer for a tooth. That being said, paleontologists from the University of Pennsylvania believe that this guy used to swim as well, because where the first Spinosaurus fossils were found, that used to be the Bahara Oasis Desert in Egypt, which was a massive swamp. Water or land, I want nothing to do with this thing. And neither did all the people in Jurassic Park. They're like, this guy's gonna kill us, let's get out of here. Number 2, the devil frog. Catching frogs is a fun way to pass the time as a kid. You grab it and you're like, oh, and then it hops away, it's magical. But 68 million years ago, if you saw a frog, you would have to stay far away from it, or else you would probably lose all of your fingers and hands. It was a lot bigger than frogs today, as most of these things are. It was on average the same size as a beach ball, and they lived on the island of Madagascar. Now they thrived there because no theropod dinosaurs could get there. Like if that little guy with the horns for hands came along, he wouldn't stand a chance. Its bite is similar to that of a wolf or a tiger, which is remarkable considering its size. Recently, however, researchers found a fossil of the devil frog, and they believe that it once had spikes and a turtle-like shell. As if the devil frog couldn't get any cooler, now you gotta add spikes. Sick. Right now we have the horned frog, which is a lot smaller, but even after this many million years of evolution, its jaw is also remarkably strong. It can still take your fingers. And finally, number 1, the CARNOTAURUS. When I watched that Disney's dinosaur movie in theaters, I cried when this dude came out. It was way too scary. I was not ready, and neither were the animals that had the misfortune of crossing this thing's path 69 million years ago. Nice. They were around the same size as the T-Rex. They came in at like 29 feet long, but they're nicknamed meat-eating bulls. They would run at about 25 miles an hour. They're one of the fastest and largest moving theropods to ever live. Its arms were smaller than that of a T-Rex, but honestly it didn't matter because this one has horns. Like a bull, hence the meat-eating bull alias. It was discovered in 1984 by Jose Bonaparte in Argentina. Now they've only discovered one skeleton of this thing, so hopefully there weren't too many of these things poking around. Literally poking around.
The short-faced bear is one of the largest bears we've ever discovered. Believed to have been up to 6 feet well on all fours, 11 feet while standing on 2 legs, and with the ability to reach up to 15 feet fully extended, I'm glad they no longer exist. On average, they're believed to have weighed between 1,600 and 1,900 pounds, with some reaching a ton, or 2,000 pounds total. Now that I'm sure we're all glad these things no longer exist, let's have some fun. Today on Life's Biggest Questions, we're going back to our roots of exploring life if we had to coexist with some of history's most terrifying animals. Today we're asking, what if the short-faced bear didn't go extinct? Welcome back to LBQ, guys. I'm your host for this one, Jared Bronstein, and today's video is a doozy. I think it's quite clear that if the short-faced bear didn't go extinct, well then, they would likely be the dominant race, and we'd all bow down to the king bear. Thankfully they did, so instead, we get to live the lives we're currently living and instead get to make fun hypothetical videos like this one. As always, stick around for some bonus content to wrap this video up, but for now, let's jump right into it. Research has led professionals to believe that these bears roamed the earth as recently as 11,000 years ago. However, there seems to be different kinds when speaking about the short-faced bear. Some sources claim there is the North and South American short-faced bear, whereas others have referenced the giant short-faced bear and the lesser short-faced bear. The interesting thing about science, specifically historical animals, is that our knowledge about them is constantly evolving. As the days, weeks, and months go by, we tend to learn more and more. Of course, at times, this can make it tough to hit the nail on the head when creating videos similar to this one. But using what I got, I think we can come to a pretty fair conclusion that these things were pretty scary, and although there are different types of short-faced bears, whether it be geological or the length of their faces, all of these bears are relatively similar enough that you could likely say the same thing would happen if any of them currently walked the earth. In fact, some people believe they still do exist, but we'll cover that later. To start, let's talk about where these things would live. It seems North America was the most ideal place for these guys, particularly in the south. What we know as California and Texas was possibly once infested with these beasts, although their fossils have also been found as north as Alaska and the Yukon. Speaking of Canada, to no surprise, these bears are also believed to have roamed from the west coast of Vancouver, likely to the east coast. However, there is also a widespread belief that they could have also found their way to Russia. In fact, some believe in the most northern parts of Canada and Russia, home to some of the coldest winters, these historical bears are still wreaking havoc. Although I certainly hope that isn't the case, we don't have much to worry about because even if they do somehow still exist, which I doubt, they would never come down to interact with humans. Not that they couldn't absolutely tear us limb from limb, but odds are they wouldn't be all that aggressive if they didn't have to. Being so large, you'd think these bears would be an apex predator. And although they likely were one of the apex predators of their times, when it comes to diet, or at least killing method, there seems to be some debate among the scientific community. Some believe the short-faced bear actually didn't have a short face at all, nor did it have long limbs. These people also believe the bear was possibly omnivorous, much like most bears today. However, fossils found in Yukon and Alaska indicated that the short-faced bear had teeth long and powerful enough to not only clean the meat off of a bone, but crack it in half as well. So they're massive with long limbs, although that's been argued, and are likely meat eaters. Could they be any more dangerous? Of course they could. Some believe these things were the fastest running bears alive. And although bears aren't necessarily that fast due to their size, it's believed the short-faced bear was able to run up to 40 miles an hour despite being 1,500 pounds. Now, to no surprise, again, this has been argued, with some claiming that the bear's long, thin limbs would help with long-distance paced running instead of an explosive attack similar to that of a lion. Due to this theory, some believe that the bear didn't kill their own prey, but instead used their heightened sense of smell to find carcasses. The bears seem to have large nasal openings, leaving many to believe they would use their sense of smell to find already dead animals to feed on, even if the original predator was still feeding on the prey. A good example of this would be a mountain lion feeding on something it had just killed, only to have the short-faced bear show up. A fight likely wouldn't even break out, as the short-faced bear would easily be able to take the cat down, leading to the cat running off to find itself another meal. The bear now just gets to feast on a freshly killed animal without having to do any of the dirty work. Now, going back to the different kinds of short-faced bears, specifically the North and South American kind, it seems they both progressed and regressed in regards to their evolution. In the South, they started off large and over the years decreased in size. In North America, the opposite happened, with the bear species growing larger as a whole over the years. This is likely due to food supply, and considering how much of northern Canada is more or less untouched, I have no doubts these bears would thrive up there. The same could be said for Russia, at least the parts that are too cold for almost any human to endure. Of course, there are those brave enough to withstand the cold lifestyle of Alaska, and some parts of Russia, but if these bears decided to make a comeback, well, they may have to move altogether. Unlike a lot of previous extinct animals, the short-faced bear coexisting with us likely wouldn't drastically change the life of the average person. Although they are quite large and scary, it's safe to say they wouldn't want to roam into the city and start going through trash cans. Although it's possible and has happened in the past with other types of bears, as we could see, like anything with nature, it's those that can adapt that survive. That's why the South American bear got smaller in size, whereas the North Americans got larger. A lack or influx of food supply will do just that. And naturally, over time, the bears physically had their bodies reshape due to the amount of food they had available to them. Meaning, in today's world, if these guys existed, they'd likely live in areas so far removed from society, we wouldn't even know it. Again, there are some people who do live closer to the woods and nature. For them, this bear could certainly be problematic. Not necessarily because they would be hunted, but simply because adding another species, especially one that is now going to be the apex predator, would completely throw off the entire ecosystem and food chain. As we know, when something like the food chain of an ecosystem is affected, there is a ripple effect that goes down the line. This tends to lead to a spike in the population of one species and a decline of many others. Depending on how much food the bears would eat, as well as what they would eat, would ultimately decide how much their existence would affect our everyday lives. It's possible we see a huge decline in any and all resources that come from northern Canada and Russia, simply out of fear that people don't want to be attacked while working up there. However, it's also interesting to think about how the bears would adapt. With less oxygen as a whole, and the difference in temperatures, odds are these bears wouldn't be able to behave the same way they did 11,000 plus years ago. In fact, their size, demeanor, aggressiveness, diet, all of it would change over the years. As we saw with their bodies physically, these bears clearly knew how to adapt to the given circumstances, which is why they went extinct as recently as 11,000 years ago. Sure, it's a long time ago, but when speaking about fossils and animals, 11,000 years ago really isn't all that long ago. So to say that them being alive nowadays would drastically change our lives as we know it, Well, I don't think so. That being said, those living in more remote areas of northern Russia and even Canada may find themselves having to fend off bears that are as tall as they are while walking on all fours. That alone is a scary thought. And although these things would certainly have an impact on the food chain regardless of where it lived, an important factor to keep in mind is that if these things didn't go extinct, that would simply mean they found a way to adapt. As previously mentioned, the northern bears seem to grow in size over the years, while their southern neighbors actually got smaller. Clearly they found a way to adapt while they were still living, and although it's evident that them going extinct shows they weren't able to adapt all that well, if somehow, someway, they managed to never go extinct, well then the opposite would be true. But given what we know, that they changed in size, likely due to a surplus or lack of food, as well as land, respectively, leads me to believe that if they never went extinct, they certainly wouldn't look the way they did 11,000 years ago. Considering how much the Earth as a whole has changed in the past 11,000 years, I'm not even talking about climate change, but even factors like having vehicles such as planes and cars, societies building up cities, states, and countries, the world in general being a completely different place than it was 11,000 years ago would also have an impact on the short-faced bears. I can't say for sure what that impact would be, as I'm not a fortune teller, but based on past evidence, it's more than likely that these bears would not only decrease in size, but may also change their eating habits. Unfortunately, we're still learning about the short-faced bear. So, for example, depending on whether or not they were aggressive and attacked, or simply just used their size to scare off predators who found prey, would possibly determine their eating habits now. Here's what I mean. If they were aggressive and attacked, then it's likely they would be an apex predator, or at least high up on the chain. However, if they used their size to intimidate and they were not all that aggressive, then it's likely, if over the years, their diet were to be changed to a more herbivore diet, and assuming they also decrease in size, they wouldn't be able to feast on other animals the way their ancestors did. Clearly there are a lot of factors here. Assuming the bears never went extinct ultimately would just go to show that they can survive all types of disasters, from extreme temperatures to wars, plagues. I mean, a lot's happened the past 11,000 years, and although some species have found a way to live through it all, it just goes to show those who survive the longest aren't the smartest nor the strongest, but those that can adapt the best.